welcome everyone from around the world. I am Daisy Ip, Director of UK, Nordics and Islands of the Hong Kong Trade Development Council. Thank you very much for taking time to join us today on the Future of Sourcing on Sustainability webinar. Just before we go into the panel discussions, may I take this opportunity to introduce who we are, the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, HKTDC, and what services the HKTDC offers to businesses globally. So Hong Kong Trade Development Council, the HKTDC, is a statutory body which promotes Hong Kong and develops Hong Kong's external trade, has been facilitating SMEs to grab business opportunities and open new markets through its global network via physical and digital platforms. With 50 offices worldwide and over 50-year experience in global trading and sourcing, the HKTDC uses its network to connect quality international buyers and suppliers via various physical fairs and digital platforms. Hong Kong Trade Development Council introduces Exhibition Plus, a brand new exhibition model integrating online and offline trade show formats, extending face-to-face interactions from its world-class exhibitions in Hong Kong to an online smart business matching platform to help you connect business partners proactively. Also with the Click to Match, a smart business matching platform, boosts advanced technology and easy operations, providing users a variety of functions and features such as AI recommended leads, precise search, appointment making, video conferencing, instant messaging, and translation, as well as file sharing and to ensure easy communication between buyers and exhibitors. With physical exhibitions, the Click to Match is an intelligence hub at hktdc.com sourcing. We can now experience a unique sourcing journey with Exhibition Plus. And the good news is in October, we're relaunching our trade fairs, and there are 5 tech fairs under one roof. The Electronics, Electronic Asia, ICT Expo, Lighting, Outdoor and Tech Light Fair. And the physical version will be from 13th to the 16th of October in Hong Kong. And then the online version will be from the 13th to 23rd of October with the Click to Match platform. This is a trade fair in hybrid format, capturing the benefits of physical and virtual exhibitions to facilitate the sourcing of products and services and the exchange of insights between businesses. And with the theme Innovations for Better Living. So there's a barcode here, the QR code here. Please do log in to have a look at what we're offering in this fair. We are also organizing a symposium on innovation and technology on source sustainability on the 13th of October. It will be the first day of the tech fairs in Hong Kong, and the symposium will also be live streamed. So looking forward to seeing you all there, and we will send over the registration details in due course. And let me just quickly go through what we offer on the hktdc.com sourcing. It is the Hong Kong's first large-scale B2B marketing platform introduced by us, the HKTDC, in 2000. As a trusted online marketplace operated by us, the statutory organization, we connect buyers and suppliers around the world with our buyer-driven business matching expertise and professional customer support teams, helping you to expand your business with mainland China, Asia, and the world. And the platform so far has already brought together more than 130,000 suppliers and over 2 million buyers, facilitating over 24 million business connections a year. The platform was revamped in October 2020 and gaining the traction of strong growth on the website visit and buyer inquiries since the relaunch. And what's more, check out our blog website and news bites to catch up with the latest sourcing news and trends to facilitate your planning. Sourcing experts around the world are invited to contribute articles and speak for webinars regularly to share tips of sourcing in different aspects and industries. So do visit us on the hktdc.com sourcing. And now, may I start the discussions of today's on the sustainability of the future of sourcing? And let me just, we have 3 very good speakers there, very experienced and expertise in this aspect. So first, we have Helena.
Hello.
Yes, hi. So we have Helena here. Helena has over 25 years in licensing industry of both media and lifestyle brands, as well as a 5-year career in sustainability. She founded for Products of Change to provide a place for industry to learn, connect, and transition to a more sustainable future. She also curates the sustainability in licensing conference to advance the industry's knowledge on future innovations within the sustainability space. Also, we have our very good friend, Sarah Ward, CEO of the Giveaway Associations. Coming originally from a blue chip retail background, Sarah then worked at Penny Kennedy, where she gained extensive knowledge within the card, wrap, and stationery areas of business. Her role at the GA is to offer help to everyone from established companies to startups, manufacturers, and retailers. And last but not least, we have Geri from EcoVadis. With over 10 years of experience in international strategy, planning, client engagement, Geri was the first customer-facing team member in the EcoVadis Asia Pacific region and is experienced in supporting multinational enterprises in developing sustainable strategies. Geri is the key advocate for helping companies in the Asia Pacific to apply best practices to their processes and integrate sustainability into procurement organizations. So without further ado, let's just start the panel discussions of today. Perhaps shall I start the panel discussion by asking Sarah about the trend. What are the current trends and appetite in Europe for sustainable product and service as you talk to your members almost daily, and how well prepared are the suppliers in this regard? So Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daisy, and welcome everybody. So when you asked us to talk about trends, I hope you don't mind, Daisy, but I put together a little bit of a speech because I think it's sometimes hard to offer enough information that's relevant for the audience. And with us not knowing everybody, looking at the numbers going up quite rapidly at the moment, I've put a few different elements together. So what I wanted to first start with is the fact that sustainability itself is classed as a trend, but actually we all know that it's not a trend itself. It's something that is here to stay, and all businesses who've got an ear to the ground are making an impactful change to improve our environment. This is a positive and major shift that we've seen over the past years in the sort of giftware, home and creative sectors. Although in these tumultuous times, if that's a good word, moving forward can have its challenges. So I was reading actually last night, Mintel has put together like a sustainable barometer, which is quite relevant actually to our sort of member businesses and the sort of sizes of SMEs that are in the UK at the moment. And I've just picked out a couple. The first one is that it says that in the UK, 39% of our consumers were concerned over extreme weather changes. The second was 53% also feel that if we act now, we still actually can do something significant to save the planet. 51% believe that their behaviour can make a positive difference to the environment, which is really encouraging. But 20% of consumers bought or will be buying products that certify to pay fair wages. An insight into sustainability and sourcing trends is visible through, we run a Gift of the Year competition. The Giftware Association added an ethical and sustainable category some 4 years ago, and it has been our fastest growing category. It spills into all the others. Interestingly, over 50% of the entrance products and companies have a sustainable story. Whether that's through discernible sourcing or the decision a business takes in its new product development. Our view is that this will further grow as the consumers' mindsets and companies will need to develop much greater in the future. The retailers that judge this competition make it very, very clear to us that they are looking for more sustainable products as they are further influenced, obviously, by the end consumer. Some stats which predominantly come from our crafting sector, but are very relevant to the gift and home, are from a survey of some 2,000 SMEs and crafters. 73% of buyers try to support a local or small business when buying craft items. 52% always try to buy British made products when they can, and especially in the crafting. Of 100 plus suppliers and shops that were surveyed, in 2021, there was a 9% increase, just 29%, who provided environmentally friendly choices. Minimising excess packaging grew from 19% in 2020 to 30% in 2021. In 2020, just 13% kept up to date with environmental changes, but we've seen that rise significantly over 2021 and 2. It's probably sort of in the mid to high 20% now. 19% of businesses in our sector are open and transparent about their sourcing. And I think you joined us, Daisy, at our meeting where we had some members actually being open and transparent. Mm. As this webinar is about the future of sourcing responsibly, it's key to note that we've seen a rise in our industry of businesses wanting to reflect that within their company practices. Take one of our members, a company called Talking Tables, who have just acquired their B Corp status. They join a growing number of companies that are reinventing business by pursuing purpose as well as profit. We would see this growing within our sector, obviously, over the next few years. When sourcing, the industry has been affected by pandemic and challenges such as closure of borders. There has also been an increase in the fluid digital platforms, allowing sourcing to be done remotely, negating the need for travel, which this demonstrates an ability to cut back on some of the travel and carbon footprint raised this way, as well as being able to build relationships through the increased use of technology. From a meeting last week discussing sourcing, it was interesting to note that a lot of sourcing countries have already adopted sustainable practices and are further willing to learn from the companies who source from them. It is this willingness that probably isn't always in the eye of the end consumer, which is where we've seen the storytelling being so important with product. Where has the product been sourced? Where are the technology improvements? What are the processes and methods? Which are questions that we get asked. Does our industry still find that sourcing further afield can often be more sustainable than some of those closer to home, which is quite a challenge in the UK especially? So to end, the key takeaway from us when researching sustainability is that there are more businesses who have it in their strategy than those who haven't started yet. And if you haven't started yet, how will you effectively compete in this ever-changing market?
Thank you, Sarah. I think you've covered quite a lot, not just the trend, but also leading on to the question about what we are going to talk about with Helena and Geri about the technicality and the practices and what are the technical issues that buyers or manufacturers need to face in terms of the on the sustainability space. And I just want to echo on what Sarah just mentioned. Last week we have a meeting with a lot of buyers, and one thing that I do very remember is a lot of the retailers, the companies they were talking about, the retailers are listening to the consumers, and it's the consumers who is demanding for green products, more sustainable sourcing. So this is quite a key message for a lot of the audience here today, to hear that actually the buyers, they are willing to look into different sourcing method, but really the voice is the consumers. And I think Sarah just touched on the statistics about the demand for that. So thank you, Sarah, very much for what you just covered, and very good about the trend, what is happening here in Europe. overall. So going back to Helene and Geri, I think Sarah just laid on to some very important questions about the sustainability strategies for a lot of companies in terms of where to source and what technology, what practices. And so I think these are maybe some topics that both of you could maybe just highlight and share with our audience today.
Definitely. Geri, should I go first? Then you can talk about how you as a company are kind of providing lots of solutions to all of this. And Sarah, that was wonderful, by the way. I absolutely loved it. And, you know, climate change isn't about the weather. It's about our impact on the environment that's causing all of this weather. So, you know, and it affects us in lots of different ways, and it massively affects trade and how we operate as society. And like you just said, Daisy, we know that retailers are really pushing and wanting change. So, you know, Walmart in the US have got an initiative called Project Gigaton, where they're talking with their top suppliers to reduce their carbon emissions, and then that will then follow through to all the SMEs. When you come back to the UK and Europe, a lot of the retailers have kind of put their stake in the ground so that they want to achieve, you know, net zero emissions by 2030 or 2040, but actually, you know, 95% of their emissions is all in their supply chain, and that's all of you, that's all of our industry. So the only way that those retailers are actually going to achieve that is if our industry starts to transition how they do things. To me, the biggest piece of this is all transparency. So this isn't something that we've been used to doing in our industry, and asking those granular questions on kind of how things are made, how things are transported from one factory to another, the multiple components, the energy that we use, the certifications, you know, that we're starting to require. And this to me is the biggest thing that we're going to have to start doing in industry is to be more transparent within how we're operating as businesses, not just for us as businesses, but that's what the retailers are wanting. And I know, Geri, you're seeing that with a huge amount of work that you guys are doing, aren't you?
Yeah, so it's like you said, I think Sarah has a very good opening on, you know, sharing what the sustainability is no longer a trend, no longer nice to have today. So a lot of companies out there is actually finding the solutions. Like there is no perfect solutions on the world, but we all do play a role in this journey together, is to drive the sustainable procurement in a way that everyone can involve. So what we have been doing with different companies like multinationals companies, what they see sustainability is already a core mission that they take into a very deep consideration in their strategic making. So it's been a journey from what we have been driving over the 15 years with all these different multinationals around the world. From what I can see is this is something that APAC, like Asia region, is going to ramp up really fast about that, because like I said, there is a lot of companies committing net zero targets in a certain time frame. So it's not about whether they want to do it or how fast they want to do it. Is we need to start playing a role in it. And what we've seen in a lot of case study with multinational companies is that they already have a very solid framework. Like, for example, they engage their top 1,000 or up to 10,000 suppliers from the start. So I use the word engage is because they absolutely need some time to digest, you know, how they should communicate about this with all the internal and also external stakeholders. So often the case that from what we can help is to have a, you know, a solution that allows them to scale up the, you know, the journey in the pace that they really want to achieve, and also enable them to scale up the, you know, the businesses that to drive the sustainable procurement in a pace that they want. So in here, what we also help is, you know, with companies that is like a mid-size or even small and medium enterprise, what they actually see the difficulties to get started is they basically know the importance, hearing from the consumer, hearing from their clients' needs that this is something they need to take into account. but they don't know where they can start because there's so many elements in sustainability, especially in the sustainable sourcing side. There's so many ways like environment, labor and human rights, business ethics, and also supply chain is also quite complex a matter for them to, to conquer, to understand where is the step one to go. So what we are seeing is we hope there is a journey, a solution that we can help them to grow together from day one, depending on their maturity level. And often the case, over the time, we have assisted around 100,000 companies as of today across the world. We see a different region has actually very different needs on how they want to get started. And this is very interesting because how we use the language, the behavior, the preferences to kickstart the discussion all matters on how they are receiving the right information to, to kickstart the journey. So I would really want to, looking forward on how we can grow this journey together and play a role in it.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you, Geri. I think that's what we like to hear about what Geri mentioned about a lot of multinationals are already involved with the strategies, but a lot of the SME actually they don't know where to start, and is a big, like you said, sustainability is a big topic, and there are lots of things, carbon footprint and also local sourcing. A lot of this they all play into that category. So I think this is why we're here today, just to share the experiences and just to, for a lot of the audience here today, maybe they are really on that step one. They really want to know what is the step one, and so what are the trends here. So that is really good that we've just touched on the technical preparations. But in terms of the impact, so like financial impact especially, so people's perception of the sustainable productions are costly and requires quite substantial financial and also human investment. But what are the long-term benefits? We know that we need to start strategizing, but what are actually the long-term benefits for looking into it now, even though considering all the costs or the energy involved, particularly for SME?
I mean, for me, a lot of, you're going to have a competitive advantage if you start to embed change now. If you look at what's coming in the future, we know that there are packaging tax, carbon tax, environmental bills that many governments are now starting to implement globally. And I know that in Europe with our European Green Deal and in the UK with our environmental bill, there's a huge amount of legislation that's now starting to nudge business forward. So those businesses that actually start this journey, though it might feel like an upfront investment, when you look over the next couple of years, and actually anybody that starts to transition their business, even though there is an upfront investment, you'll start to see over the years that investment starts to pay off and you get a competitive advantage. So, I mean, there's so many business cases out there for sustainability. And actually, a lot of people that start the journey, they're actually saving money straight away because, being efficient, efficient saves you money. Efficiency saves you money. Cutting waste out of a business saves you money. So actually, there are some easier interventions that you can start with to get a business on a journey while you look at how you invest in in the stuff that starts costing money when you're looking at changing manufacturing processes. That starts to cost money. But there are lots of things that you can do to start getting on the journey as you gear your business up to full business transformation.
Thank you, Helena. I think that's a very interesting point. Actually, people will be starting to save in a different way, even planning, in terms of the sourcing strategy. And Geri, Sarah, anything to add on that one?
Maybe I can add on an example of one of the banks. Actually, there's a couple of them out there that we work with, and specifically in terms of cost saving, we work with banks that are on sustainability linked loans. So these are some of the examples of how we work with different parties to kickstart their journey to see sustainability as a value in terms of return to cut costs and also help them to save money. The way of how they do it is they get started by assisted from our ratings. So if there is an improvement from their first scorecard to their next scorecard, if there is an improvement in the score performances, what they can get in return is the cutback of the interest rate, to have like a lower interest rate to get those loans. So this is a very direct example of how, in the financial side, on what we can see to work with different parties to, engage the right parties to kickstart their journey. And we also seen some of the examples like sustainable supply chain finance as well. So that's also an exciting program that we work with different financial institutions to, to engage on our, let's say, our existing client, to look through their supply chain for suppliers that already get assisted, and to leverage those scorecard performances to encourage improvement from time to time. And sustainability is not something, overnight you can get a flip of a really great performance over the night. So it has to let the time to grow, to understand, for a lot of SMEs to, take their time, but understanding this is not something that can wait forever. There is an agenda there to keep them growing, and the financial incentive there to support them in the business, to put sustainability into a core centerpiece. So it's no longer, on the side and wait for people to take a look when they have time.
I wonder if there's a seismic shift about to happen, because we're all on this call. We're business leaders and owners, but we're also consumers ourselves. And I think people are becoming, I know, myself, or, my son and things, we're all becoming a little more discerning about why we buy things and what we're going to buy.
Mm.
And although at the moment it is uncomfortable for businesses to move, but it is moving, even if it's small. And I think the next year possibly will be where it moves a bit quicker. Yeah, I mean, it's those sort of questions on some of the basics. Is I wouldn't know if a bus journey from my village into town should cost me more or less than £5, for example. And I think that's the thing, that sometimes when we sit back and think about it and think about the price of things, maybe we are going to start re-educating ourselves as to what we feel is a price that is worth paying for something that maybe has more sustainable value.
Totally. And I don't think we can forget that generation alpha, which is that next generation, the climate is that their future. And so we know that the way that they see products and how things are produced and the visibility that they want is very different to even how we see things, because we've lived and experienced a totally different world. Their experience is so far removed from how we are experiencing it. And, we need to get business ready for that, don't we?
Absolutely. I think you both are absolutely right about the next generation. They think very differently in terms of how to protect the environment. Even my 9-year-old daughter is sometimes tells me off of what I'm buying too much clothes because it's not good for the environment. So they do definitely have a very different mindset, and it's very, very admirable for them what they're doing. And especially now, actually, as I mentioned at the beginning, I look after the Nordic countries, and the Nordic countries here, they're very strong and sustainable for many, many years. And of course, there's a cost to pay, but they are actually, like what Sarah just brought up, that very important message is, yeah, it might be more costly, but actually you're saving from the other side. You try not to waste so much as much too. And so thank you very much. I think Geri also just brought, I want to go back to the point about the financial infrastructures, that actually so many financial infrastructure and services that are available to help companies to start this journey in a most effective and also, I think, quite a transparent way. Also, just in a simple idea, actually maybe the cost and the investment is there's some loan that you need to take, but actually by improving your sustainability ability, you're actually helping yourself in terms of the interest rate. So that is a really very good incentive I also as well. And so I've learned something new today about on this, how to start the journey. So anything to add, Geri, Helena, Sarah? If not, then I will move on to the Q&A, because we do have quite a lot of participants join us today. So thank you very much. And we do have some questions. Maybe I'll start with the first question from Hong Kong electronics manufacturers. So question is, in the future, what are the difficulties for companies or organizations they will face in a sustainable sourcing? Even though we just covered that, but what are the the most prominent difficulties that you could see from perhaps Geri, maybe to start with?
Sure. I think in general, it's not only for the future, but I think it's more for companies to understand to understand the same message, to understand how to interpret sustainability. It's something that a lot of company is currently experiencing, and for those that haven't started yet, then this will be their future difficulties to get started. So I think from what we see, some of the best practices clients in the way of how they communicate with the right message is they have a lot of different internal campaigns from top-down approach. They have a very clear message from their C-level executives that this is something that they will roll out in a certain period of time, like let's say next 3-5 years. And the objectives is very clear and direct because of the net zero, because of reducing the carbon emission in their scope 3. So this is all a kind of example of how a clear message can be built with an objectives with a clear time frame. And the next question is, how do they get started? And a lot of times we work with a lot of peers in the industry, a lot of sustainability practitioners from consulting firm, tech firm, AI firm, to help scale up the businesses in this part of the world, is to provide them the right tools in terms of engagement in the value chain, in terms of the engagement with the internal stakeholder within the organization as well. So these are all the solution, I would say, although it's talking about difficulties, but I already see there is a lot of solutions out there. And I think this is the right time, the perfect timing to get started in sustainability. You have the financial incentives, you have the right, I would say the atmosphere from everyone is talking about it, to help growing the knowledge in different levels of companies as well. So this is what I could foresee in the future, in the soon future.
Thank you, Geri and Helena. Sarah, anything to add on that question?
I mean, to me, the amount of legislation that's coming out, and I said before, the transparency, I just think that we need the systems in place to enable us to do that easily. And at this minute in time, they're not there. There's a lot of different certifications that you can get, and they all cost money. So how does that all get linked into the supply chain, and who pays for that? Because obviously this stuff's really important. So I think we're going to have a bit of a shift of kind of communal payment of things within the supply chain, and then it all coming down to one party. I think that I think the power shift has to change as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I've got a question from Italian electronic manufacturers. I think we've covered in the discussion just now. Are there any mandatory regulations to comply about the sustainability of the products imported in Europe, or if there will be any? So I think, Helena, you're the expert on this one. Will you be able to fill in that?
So there's quite a lot, and even throughout Europe there are different regulations in different countries. So France at the minute has the most strictest law on plastics. We've got new packaging tax, we've got the European Green Deal. So even the Commission's a marketing authority as far as how you market your products. When it comes to marketing sustainable products, there are companies that are now being fined for misleading. So there is, so I don't think I could mention it all in 5 minutes. There is a huge amount of policy and direction that's coming definitely from Europe. In the US, again, there's nothing really that's coming out federally, but actually if you go to New York, there's new legislations coming out within fashion. If you go to California, there's new legislations within plastics and electric. So I would always just go and check government websites, because there is a huge amount that's coming up as far as legislating.
And actually, on that note, we got a question from a live audience here. From textile industries. He or she is asking about if there's any platform that we could keep track of the laws and bills that are already effective or to be effective regarding sustainability, like the anti-waste or circular economy law in France. for example?
So Textiles Exchange is a fantastic website or a great organisation to join. There's a huge amount of information that's available for free, and then you can actually join them as a membership organisation, and they give you all of the latest up to date when it comes to fashion and material sourcing,
Okay.
within fashion and textiles.
Okay. Well, thank you, Helena. That's very useful. And there's another question from Hong Kong, also on the fashion, clothing, accessories. Importer is a distributor agent. There is always an MOQ on production, which is not sustainable in retail perspective. So how to balance that? I think probably Helena or Geri will you be able to answer that very true, but also quite a challenging question.
Well, to me, it's all about kind of setting the new future as well on what you want the future to be, because if you always go by the way it's always been, then nothing's ever going to change. So I think it's all about, yes, there are MOQs, but you're looking at just the price of buying that product. If you were to look at actually how much of that product gets sold through, how many of it comes back, and you were to look at it as a whole business case, maybe buying more isn't cheaper, because down the line you get stuff back and you've got to get rid of it. So I think you have to look at the whole chain, and maybe you do, you do a limited run, and if it sells out, you do another limited run. I think that we need a whole business model transformation as well.
And I think it's like shipping, isn't it? Unfortunately, we've set ourselves that problem, because if the demand continues to still be there, then factories can insist that they're followed. But if we reduce the need for the demand, or say the demand is less, then that is going to move things and try and adjust to Helena's point of trying to have that sort of new normal of that if an MOQ was 1,000 plus or something, then actually the starting point should be 500 pieces now, and that yes, it could be slightly more, but in the long run, that's going to be better.
I think that's Geri. Anything to?
Oh yeah, I was just saying, yeah, I can't agree more with both Helena and Sarah's point of view in here as well. Is most of the time when we look into the problems, it's always the tip of the iceberg. You only know the top, the surface of everything. But when you look beyond that to understand the true cause behind all this, is actually way more expensive. But maybe it's not coming from your pocket, but it's coming from elsewhere. Maybe it's from some of the developing countries to who to digest those excessive production. So I totally understand it's not something that we can change overnight, but we have to realize that this is a problem. It's no longer just an issue that hopefully we can fix it, but it's always good to have some leaders, procurement leaders, to take consideration of that, to look beyond the total cost of the ownership, and take the initiative that because of their leaders, their pioneer in this industry, they want to do more for that, to lead the role. And this is what we often see in a lot of our clients, that they actually drive the sustainability as one of the weighting when they are inviting their suppliers to participate RFP. So take, for example, some companies will look into not only their cost, quality, and also delivery. They take sustainability into one of the elements, whether they met the the threshold of that, to take into consideration. And there's also almost 56% out there in the industry, in the market, is that they are willing to discontinue cooperation with those suppliers that continue to fail the sustainability performance. So there is actually procurement leaders out there that is taking a firm approach. It's not something that they just want to test the water. They actually take it very seriously, and that's why we're all here to discuss about there's problems, there's also solution, and we're there to support everyone to take start to understand how we can go through this. Yeah,
That's very good, Geri. I think you just mentioned on this one actually also the questions, because we have a question coming through, how there's no such tax in Asia. There's no the tax or the bills that Helena just mentioned. in Asia is a completely different mindset. So is one of the question is how do they convince the management to increase the price when you do the procurement? And what you just mentioned brought up is, there's a problem there, there's solutions out there, and there's demand, and there's a reason for that. And also there's another question about ESG, how willing are the consumers are willing to pay for that increased price? And I think Sarah, at the beginning about the trend setting, clearly state that there is a huge demand, and I can also vouch for that comment, because when I was with Sarah last week talking to different buyers, there's the retailers here is really asking for that because the consumers are asking for that. So I don't think that there's a huge question mark here about are they willing to pay. They are willing to pay if it's worth it, and what just the speakers have already covered about what they're willing to pay and what they might not be paying more on the other side of the products. So I've got another question is, what do you think are the crucial factors for theoretical domain framework or copy for sustainability? Do you think Geri or Helena can answer the questions?
Do you mean, say that again, but did you say what's the main, like what are the main things to focus on? I don't quite understand the question properly.
Yeah, I think the question, it means that what are the crucial factors that is for to set up the framework to start the sustainability, like the copy journey. I think that is really the question. What are the crucial factors they need to look into?
And Geri, you might want to lead on more than this, but what we do with companies, we say that, what is your biggest impact? Where is your biggest environmental impact, and how do we start to reduce that? Now, as you start to reduce that, how do we then look at, energy efficiency, transportation, waste within the business? Maybe would be great to have a zero waste policy. And then looking at what are the solutions to all of that as well. So zero waste to landfill. So kind of looking at all the different areas of your business, looking at how to reduce your impact, and then we would put a plan together to kind of focus on the biggest impact area, which for a lot of people it's the energy that they use, whether it's through transportation or manufacturing process. So how do you use renewables? How can you work with your partners to reduce the impact in that way? And Geri, I'm sure it might be quite similar the way that you work with your partners.
Yeah, so definitely. I think it's also a good approach to understand where your company is standing today, where are your maturity, and don't be afraid to face that maturity, because there definitely is a process for every one of us. When you mentioned when we are a child, we can't just take up to the university level when we're small, right? There is a journey. So we have to understand, first of all, evaluate ourselves, our company journey. Where are we today? It's no shame to say, oh, we're just a beginner. It's actually already a good start that you take this acknowledgement, and then you see where is the gaps are, and then you build a program for your company. And because there is different industry, there is very different regulations, compliance, and also best practices across different industry. So what it really is really try to embrace that to get started first, and see where the gaps are, and have I think right now in the industry, there is a lot more that you can just get the free information online on understanding sustainable procurement in terms of environmental, like waste management, energy efficiency, renewable energy, product, how do you manage the product and life cycle, and also the business wise, how do you start the conversation, social dialogue with your employees about child labor, forced labor, gender equality, and also all this different conversation that you can just get started to warm up the room, and let all the stakeholder to understand, oh, this is a lot to go through, but you guys are not alone. There is so many other companies that already just get started as well. And whoever attend today's webinar, I think you have to give yourself a round of applause that you already take the first step, because you are there to understand the topic, prepare for it. So that's pretty much how, we see will be, and also an effective approach.
Yeah, we tend to start with ambition and principles, because actually, if you don't know where you're going, how can you build a plan to get there? And some companies might just want to tick a regulation box, and that's how far they want to go. Others might want to be like trailblazers and within an industry sector and really push the envelope of what can be achieved. So yeah, I think it's really good to have an understanding of kind of what you want as a business before you go on that journey too.
Yeah, thank you. Sarah, anything to add on that from your members' perspective? Have you come across questions like this?
Yeah,
what should yeah.
of course we do, or every day of every week. But actually, what's interesting is that actually sometimes looking at the other way, we get a lot more comments after that people realise they're doing better than they thought they were once they start looking at it. And I think that's important. I think as business owners especially, you beat yourself up about what you're not doing and don't actually look, and especially in our industries where marketing is so key, look at what you actually have done. I mean, I had a company a few weeks ago, it's quite a large multi-million-pound company in our industry, and you would look at the types of products that they sell and think, gosh, they're probably doing very little from a sustainable, but their building and their efficiencies, are, almost state of the art. And yet there's not that message being communicated necessarily as clearly through. They know they've done it all because they started that process and got quite a bit of support in order to make that, viable years ago. And yet it's something now that it is, good to look at where you are, because you might not be at the beginning.
Thank you, Sarah. I think this was a very challenging question about where to start and what are the crucial factors. But I think all the speakers share a very encouraging message that everyone start like from zero, but then you will get there, and actually you must surprise yourself with what you can achieve and what you can done in the sustainability space. And I've got a very practical question. I think probably Sarah also, maybe you also face this question every day. Is from a buying agents that in from Hong Kong on fashion clothing accessories. The question is there a specific set of product testing standards required for recycled products?
There's a myriad, and each different category of product requires different testing, and it is still a bit of a minefield. I think maybe a difficult one to use. I mean, I think from factories accreditations is a really good starting point to break down into that and really understanding your commodity codes, and then where that leads. I mean, Helena will know better than me, but certainly at the moment it is a bit of a minefield in the UK. There's been a lot of changes and shifts to some of these, that I would say that in the main, it's not probably the answer you want, that people feel, especially in that area, extremely overwhelmed. Yeah, and equally that it may not be as challenging or as difficult to get tested. Testing always seems a bit of a scary and expensive, especially in the gift element. Retailers have been, rightly so, quite demanding around the types of testing and proving from a company when working with them. But there's an awful lot of very experienced companies that I see every day, and I'm sure Helena does, are very much open to share those experiences and learn. And I think that's a huge bit of advice to anyone, is think about it today of who are you networking with to talk about this as a daily, especially a lot of business owners feel like they're on an island. It's a very lonely existence because you can't go to your staff and sort of say, hey, I'm a bit, I'm not probably as qualified as this, especially at MDs, find themselves lost. But there is an awful lot of support out there. I find it all the time to myself. I don't work now, I advise around stuff like that, but when you're not in it day to day, it is very overwhelming. So I don't know if it quite answers it, because there are so many different product testing requirements, so many different legislations around those, so many complexities around the commodity codes and the shipping and everything else.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is confusing, especially at the minute with all of the new packaging tax and getting recycled content, and where's that recycled content coming from, and getting that certificated through, you know, a regulated certification process, which actually is really, it is hard to do, because actually some markets have different regulations of what recycled content means. So, you know, Turkey and China might have, well, I know that they do have different explanations of what's accepted versus the UK government. So you need to make sure that actually the certification that you've got is in line with the local market that you're selling the product to. And I don't know, Geri, if you see the same. I know that in the UK we've got OPRL and Recoup, who are plastic charities, who you can go onto their websites and you can see kind of what are the latest certifications required and who are the governing bodies that can give you that certification. There's too many to say here, but I know that there are places that you can kind of go to get that information.
Yeah. Geri?
And instead of
like the Institute of Exporting, that's a great place to start with stuff, because they you know, especially if you are importing or exporting, then somebody like that who's, you know, team is specialized just in that area can navigate that journey far quicker than probably a lot of us that have a lot of connections with that. But for one company the solution might be different, so that's a great place that I found our members use.
I was about to add on is instead of going through, you know, individual products, what sets of requirements or testing standard that you're looking into, what we also often see is we can look into the entity as an overall, like the practices, the framework, how they are putting all these different metrics together, rather than just, you know, because if you imagine if you're you know, a company that is exporting a lot of products, you can easily lose track, because there's so many different region, different targeted, you know, clients. So it's a lot to actually look into that much details. And from what we can also learn about from our client is that I would say to go for a strategic approach is that you don't look into individual product right away, like jump on like that, but you can look into your own company's framework to get started. And once you get that all started, get that all sorted, which could take already some duration of time to figure that out, what is the right approach for your companies. And from then on, you can then feel more comfortable, because when you are growing your maturity of your ESG framework as an overall, you would then have more sources, more channels, more partners that you know how you want to work with for a certain product as well. So instead of zooming in right into the product, you can zoom out a little bit and look into your own company structure to get this started as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Geri. And I think we all have a very holistic approach, and also for these questions. We do have about 7 minutes left. May I just fill in? We have lots of questions, but don't worry. I'm sure that we will be able to answer your question or connect you with the speakers afterwards. Just on one question on the jewelry and watch sectors is from Poland. How sustainability applies in jewelry business, especially in sourcing gemstones?
Well, Helena, do you have an answer of
Yeah.
that?
Well, I know that you work with the Jewellery Association, so I didn't know if you wanted to say anything first, Sarah.
Well, the obvious, I personally am not a gemstone expert, but I do hear that in the office every single day. And my advice, I mean, certainly there is the National Association of Jewellers, which very much, I think there's quite a bit of information currently on their website in regards to gemstones. So sorry that we can't be more helpful today, but certainly, Daisy, if they drop me an email, I will make sure that passed on to one of the experts within that sector.
Definitely.
And I think it's all about gaining more transparency, you know, asking where they're sourcing them from. Do they, you know, do they know where they're getting those gemstones from, that reputable company that you might be working with? So I think it's about asking all those questions.
Geri, anything?
Transparent.
Transparency.
Yeah, definitely. Transparency is a key thing, and also when I think we can link up to two areas in here is a lot of the case when we're looking into the jewelry business, we also look into their policy or framework in terms of how they're managing their conflict minerals to try not to, to gain enough of transparency on how they're handling those labor and human rights issue, which is a lot of the problem in the conflict minerals area. So that will be also something a lot of the jewelry businesses that they prioritize this part of it to kickstart their sustainability. But of course, transparency in the overall is very much needed in this industry to make sure that there is, the right momentum to understand what is the core in terms of the sustainability in their industry, and also how they can, prioritize the area like conflict minerals, managing their labor and human rights policies will help them to get started with a very nice approach.
Thank you, Geri. That's a very, very well articulated solutions to for our answers. So I think we have 5 minutes left, and I want to go to this question to wrap up our webinar. This is a different kind of questions that we've just come across. Is if the companies is already doing the sustainable products, what is the next step they can enlarge this business? And also, can you all give an example, any innovative sustainable products that you know probably in the future? This is a big question. So what the first question is, if someone is already doing the green product, sustainable product, what is the next step? What is the advice that you give them to grow on that aspect? And the next question, what have you come across any example innovative sustainable products you could share?
I think
So
it
shall I
depends
start
on,
with Helena first? Yeah.
to me, I think it depends on the actual sustainability of that product. So if they just changed the material, therefore they've just changed the material changes probably 10% of the impact of the product. So therefore they can look at all their efficiencies in the supply chain, are they using renewable energy, how they're transporting that product. And then it's kind of looking to the end consumer, how do they keep that product in circulation for longer, that closed loop circular economy. How can we ensure that we don't take, make and waste and it just sits there and goes to landfill, that actually we unlock value in the product at the end of its life as well. So I think it depends on what they've done so far on that journey. What are they classing as a sustainable product?
And any innovative products that you have come across?
I think to me it's innovative business models. So there's a wonderful company based on the Isle of Wight in the UK, and they're a fashion company called T-Mill, and their fashion brand is Rapa Nui. And they've actually built a tech platform for anybody to own a fashion brand. So all of the material is organic cotton, and then you can take it back and then they recycle it. So it's recycled organic cotton. And then as those cotton fibers get harder and harder to recycle and they have to mix it with new cotton, they produce a different product because the product gets thicker. So then it goes into coats and trousers and beanies, and they just continue that whole cycle, but all through technology as well. So to me, they are the circular engineers of the future, and those businesses are growing at an exponential rate because we know that next generation wants to work with businesses that are being regenerative and kind to the planet, as well as prospering in a business.
Yeah, thank you, Helena. And Sarah, next.
Yeah, just that there are lots of things I'm thinking on that. It's getting my brain going a little bit. But I think with any type of business, I mean, our industry is massively affected by packaging. That's quite a big area. And I remember actually Helena and I talking at a trade event, and some of the most obvious things in front of you, we're probably not all doing enough to push it to the next level. So for example, this is what Helena said to me, look at this show, absolutely great, because there's all these, say, cardboard bins, or maybe they're plastic bins, so everybody's recycling a coffee cup but putting it into a liner and putting it into a plastic bin. And when I looked at that, sort of thinking, gosh, that's so obvious. But then it's kind of, you can play a part as a business of pushing that. So how do you then get the plastic bin, the utensil, doing that, moving to change that, to remove that from the way that we live in our daily life? And I think within any business sector of ours, I now start thinking wherever I am, or when you're looking at something, what's the next stage? Take the greeting card industry, you know, phenomenal industry in the UK. Thankfully, you know, quite recession proof, you know, has had lots of sustainable changes over the last decade. But again, when people said it about removing the cellophane from there, you know, it's a sort of, oh no, you know, that's comfortable, you'll get your dirty fingers all over it. But actually working together more as an industry, which they did say, well, we can collectively change the mindset. The consumer didn't react as poorly to it as probably expected.
Yeah, I think that's a very obvious change, and I noticed most of the cards I bought in the UK now has no cellophane, is
No?
all clipped with a paper, and actually it's quite nice. The packaging is nicer with cellophane, so it works very well. So thank you, Sarah. Maybe I'll move on to Geri to maybe give our closing remarks plus answering the questions.
For myself, I think about circular economy, which will be something a near trend for us to focus on that, because this is basically a very minimal cost for a materials that you can get. And I can't remember what is the initiative name, but I'm very impressed with their projects about some young fashion designer to start utilizing the waste. It could be plastic waste, it could be papers or any kinds of materials that is categorized as waste. No one actually need it for another use. Then they build it together, or they mix it, experiment it to make it into a fabric, a material that they can put it on themselves, and they walk in the fashion show to showcase how circular economy is. It's a thing that you don't need to spend a lot of money to convert those waste, and you don't need to buy virgin materials to make beautiful clothing. And I think that's a very good initiative in the long run for the young generations to understand, to be inspired that they can apply in fashion, they can also apply in different industry as well. So that's definitely a way to keep motivating and encouraging more different members, different companies, different sector to join the force.
Go and check out Junk Couture, because this is a young,
this is the one that I'm talking about. Yeah,
they're doing amazing stuff. So go check out Junk Couture. And then biofabricate is the next thing as well. So biofabrication of materials. There's so much happening out there with looking at how biology can help us produce. So I think that's going to be a huge area of interest over the next decade for sure.
In fact, actually, what to wrap up this, what Geri and Helena mentioned, I think I went to exhibition in Design Museum in London earlier this year. I think the last bit of the exhibition is about the waste age. The exhibition name is called the waste age. Unfortunately, it's finished now. The last bit is about the what you just mentioned about fabric, the technology is using on the fashion industry. So we have covered a lot from production technicalities, the financial infrastructures, and all these practical questions. What is the future? I think we have a very insightful webinar, and I hope everyone joined us found it very insightful and help encouraging as well too. I think the recording will be shared with all of us after the event. But thank you very much, Helena, Sarah, and Geri. And I hope that this is just the beginning of many of us. And we'll do more of this kind of webinar. I think it's very, very useful.
Thank you, Daisy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody, and good luck on your journey.
Yeah, join us. Get started.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.